Hello, today I'm going to go over with you how our kindergarten has been going so far this year. Now, if you have seen any of my previous videos, then you'll know what curriculum we are using, but if you haven't, in preschool and junior kindergarten we use Memoria Press, and for the most part, and then in kindergarten we moved over to the NOAA plan from the Foundation for American Christian Education. And so this video kind of gives you an update on how this has been going, how we've used it, how we've not been using it, etc. There's a lot to talk about. So first of all, we start off every morning with our calendar time, and that is a carryover from our previous years of homeschool. And we also do recitation. This is something that I kept in our homeschool days from Memoria Press. So this year when buying curriculum, I bought the Memoria Press kindergarten recitation. And because of just some of the slight differences in the way that we do things, I didn't keep recitation exactly the same. You'll see here I have all sorts of marks and highlights all over this page of different things that we're doing. Some of it because he had already learned information, so I just right off the bat had several things that he could do already, but we start off every morning with a recitation. Now, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, it is the Memoria Press recitation. On Tuesdays, I've been doing chunks of scripture. So as of right now, what my son has memorized is Psalm 23 and Psalm 100. So those are the two that he recites on Tuesdays. And then on Thursdays, I've been having him go back through the Bible verses that we learned in our junior kindergarten year, the ABC Bible memory verse book. I'll try to put pictures and links to stuff with this video. But he goes back through all of the Bible verses in that book on Thursdays as his recitation time. After recitation, we start Bible. During his Bible time, he has been learning a verse most every week. There's been a couple weeks where we've not introduced a new verse, but most every week he learns a new Bible verse. So we try to go over those briefly at the beginning to make sure that he's continuing to remember them. It's not a memorize it for 1 week and never revisit it. We always are revisiting those verses so that he has retention of them. And then in the NOAA plan lesson guide, which if you're not familiar with it from a previous video or from looking at it yourself, they are only a weekly lesson plan to each one of these. They have Bible lessons. The very first week of the school year, all the subjects are going through the biblical foundations for those subjects. We had a good week that week. We really enjoyed that. And so very first week was talking about Genesis 1:1. That went well. But as we got further on into Bible in later weeks, there started to be some stuff that I did not care for. Oh, I didn't bring that one book over here. Oh well. The Early Reader's Bible was an integral part of weaving the Bible lesson into the beginning reading of the student. I had very high hopes for this. This was one of the things that drew me to using Foundation for American Christian Education's NOAA plan. Was the incorporation of a beginner's Bible as a basal reader. And well, unfortunately, some of the Bible stories weren't that biblical, I guess I'll put it that way. The one I can recall for the moment that I was especially disappointed with was a story about the boy giving up his lunch for Jesus to take the 5 loaves and the 2 fishes and feed the 5,000. All it actually says in scripture, if you look at the Bible, is there's a lad here and he has 5 loaves and 2 fishes. That's it. That's all the Bible actually says about this boy. But this created this whole big narrative about this little boy. And I understood that they were incorporating, let's see if I can find that particular week real quick. Yes, here it is. A principle of stewardship, that God has given us responsibility over the things that he is entrusted us with, our body, our conscience, our talents, and how we can bless others with those talents. So I understood the biblical principle they were going for, but I want to use, if I'm going to be teaching a Bible lesson, I want to use what's in the Bible. The Bible is sufficient to teach us all things. I don't think you have to pull an outside narrative that's not actually in scripture to do that. So from this Bible lesson, I started diverting off of Noah plan for the most part with Bible. In conjunction with Bible time, however, something that we had started previous to picking up the Noah plan was Answers in Genesis, Answers Bible Curriculum. Now, if you've watched many homeschool YouTube videos, especially about Bible curriculum, you've probably already seen this one. We are actually into the second year's book now. We went through the first year's book in probably half a year. There was a section of time where my son was wanting to do a lesson a day. These are more structured out to be a lesson per week, just to give a frame of reference. But he can easily sit through the reading, if not in one sitting, definitely in 2 sittings. And then right after we're finished with going over the review questions, he goes into the worksheet. He loves doing these worksheets. Worksheets are not really a part of Noah plan. And ironically enough, my son absolutely loves doing worksheets. So you can see here, this particular lesson, we're looking at the different things that were in the tabernacle. And what I appreciate about the Answers Bible curriculum is that it very often at the end of the lesson takes it back to how this applies to Christ. Even though we're talking about, in the first one, we were dealing with the very first part of Genesis, and this year it's going from Moses to Hosea. So you're talking about the end of the books of the law. They're going into the time of the judges, etc. Right now, we had just finished up Ruth, and we started Samuel. So that's where we're at in this right now. So to slow the pace down a bit for this, I actually pulled something that we had from Memorial Press before, which is this, the Story Bible. I don't always care for the way that it paraphrases things. If I do want to change it, I just change the way I read it. But my son loves it because of the pictures. So this is the one for Samuel. Like I said, we were just covering this. And so you see, this is a representation of Hannah praying for Samuel. Obviously, she didn't pray out like this. She prayed in front of the tabernacle, but that's covered within the lesson. And then God calling Samuel. This is a picture of Samuel running to Eli. So he really likes the pictures in this. So I've been using this to space out these lessons. So I'll introduce it with something simple like this and reading it out of the scripture. And then we'll go into the more in depth with this. So that's been working out well for us for Bible. Okay, so that's Bible. So we did calendar time, recitation, Bible. Next in our morning is math. So in the Noah plan, they do not give weekly math lessons. They give you a chart of Bible principles to introduce that coincide with Right Start Math. So Right Start Math is what they used. These plans specifically accompanied the first edition. So I got the first edition Right Start Math Level A for my son. We ended up using that for about 5 weeks. And I started having reservations about the program. I did not care for the fact that he wasn't writing anything, writing any kind of numbers. All of it was tangible, physical. There was no understanding of how to conceptualize a number. It was all just tangible stuff. And then they started going into some geometrics, and he was getting a little confused. And I was like, well, it seems like the basics are kind of getting left off. So I started revisiting, rethinking my plan with that. At the same time, I feel like not so much coincidentally, I came across Memoria Press's video explaining their approach to mathematics. I watched that. I agreed with it. I talked with my husband, who's more of a math mind. He is a high school science teacher. And my dad, who had many years worked as a construction estimator, constantly working with numbers, and they both agreed that the Right Start approach was not what they felt like would be best for my kiddo. So I, after 5 weeks, dropped Right Start mathematics. We kept some of the manipulatives just in case we wanted to use them. The only thing I've used since then has been the little square tile, so I wouldn't necessarily recommend getting that set just because. But what we have been using now is Memoria Press's kindergarten math. We picked right up with that. And so for the most part, they're using Rod and Staff's Beginning Arithmetic, Level 1. And it's your traditional workbook. Once again, my son does not mind. And we're dealing with some simple addition and things. And there's a textbook. I just didn't bring it over here that goes along with this. And then in the Memoria Press use of this, they have that. They have morning drills, math drills. That's just a simple sheet that they are reviewing what they've learned in previous lessons in a timed manner. And they have these numbers books. So this is numbers book 1. And we are already through all of this. This is pretty much what you would do in first semester. And then we just started on recently in numbers book 2. And so this is where we're at right now, the number 17. And he's doing great with it. He remembers things really well. A lot of the time, honestly, he can be independent with this, which I know that will change as things get more difficult. But as of right now, he is doing excellent with it. I love the fact that we are now using a more traditional math program. I was not great in math. I still don't know a lot of my multiplication and division facts, and I wish I did. So for that reason alone, very grateful we are doing this for math. So Bible, math, sorry, I'm having a little bit of a runny nose here. Just kind of that time of year where all the pollen's starting to come out. Reading. So as I mentioned before, in the NOAA plan, they have what they refer to as Bible as reader, and that's where they were supposed to be using that early reader's Bible as their beginning reader. Not only did I find trouble with the content, my son couldn't read it. It may be a good beginner reader if your child already knows how to read. But as far as it working alongside while I was trying to teach him how to read, it was not working. It was not going to work. So we dropped me trying to do that. And also because that was kind of what I was counting on for my read aloud time. My son became very accustomed with the Memoria Press curriculum. I'd say he'd almost got spoiled with it, with having a weekly read aloud. And that was something that was made very clear to me from the very first week. My son's like, what are we reading this week? So I was not allowed to drop that. We've used library books for this. I did get a couple of the books for kindergarten from Memoria Press to be read during our homeschool time, just because this was one. A Tree is Nice. If I remember correctly, I want to say they used this in week 1 of the Memoria Press kindergarten, but I'm not 100%. But we read through this book. He enjoyed it. At the same time in art, which I'll cover later, we were talking about line, and so I was showing him the different lines and the different types of things that they did in the illustrations of this book. So this book is A Tree is Nice. And then I also, because like I said, I did not buy the Memoria Press full set of readers are read alouds. I incorporated some of her old ones. So this is Mr. Pine's Purple House. This was one of his favorites. And so we went back through this one not long ago. Like I said, I also use library books. If you get the chance, the book Petunia, and I'll try to either put a picture or a link to it down below. That was a great read aloud book, and it led into a very good biblical lesson for us. And so I highly recommend that book as well. So reading time, we start off with me reading to him. So we'll do one of those read alouds. We will also do a poem. And so I've used this book some, Famous Poems, Old and New. They've got lots of good poems in here. I'd be careful of some of them, but that's just up to you and what you find appropriate. It doesn't take much time to pre-read a poem and decide if it's something that you want to read to your child or not. But they've got them broken up by all sorts of different categories. This is one of my son's favorites, is the Song of the Train by David McCord. He really likes that one. And Trains by James Tippett. He went through a phase of really liking trains. So this is one of the books that we use for reading a poem at the beginning of our reading time. Another one we use a lot is this A Child's Garden of Verses by Robert Louis Stevenson. I forgot to mention, Favorite Poems, Old and New is recommended by Foundation for American Christian Education. That's how I ended up with this particular book. Child's Garden of Verses by Robert Louis Stevenson. Obviously, this is just works by Robert Louis Stevenson, but it's got really great pictures, and so therefore my son gravitates towards this book more. I do think there's value in reading literature to your kids that doesn't have illustrations, but obviously there is value to it too. So there's both sides of the coin to that. And in case you're interested, this was a free printable from Homeschool Compass. And they've got, and I'm going to include a link because I may have gotten the name a touch wrong. They've got free printables for all sorts of different seasons for seasonal poems. So this one's for winter. They had them for all 4 seasons. They've got a lot of free printable stuff. We used some of their Apple stuff when we read the book, How to Make an Apple Pie and See the World. So next up in our reading time, so let me go with this. We've dropped this just because he hasn't really needed it. But again, in the Foundation for American Christian Education, they recommend using this. And this is phonemic awareness in young children. The key to this is it's a classroom curriculum. I found, unfortunately, there were a lot of these that did not work in our homeschool because my son is an only child and it was meant to be done along with other children. So there were several of these activities that we couldn't do. He did enjoy it. He had fun with the ones that we were able to do. They were fun little games like this one, hiding the alarm clock. So you hit a clock somewhere with it ticking and they had to go find it. Well, obviously I don't necessarily, this is an older book. I don't have that, but I found a video on my phone that would play the sound of a ticking clock and I just hid my phone. That worked out just fine. And then it called for you reading rhyming books, which we did a lot, in addition to our regular read alouds, unless the read aloud happened to be a rhyming book. Clapping for consonants, doing those sorts of things. But I found that as far as developing phonemic awareness, my son was good. I'll say this, he is an older kindergartner. He turned 6 in the fall. So he's on the older side of kindergarten, which made him a little more ahead of what I think some of the NOAA Plan's lessons were written for. So we did this for the first probably quarter, maybe a little more, and then we've since set it aside. I do recommend making sure that you do go over something for phonemic awareness. Maybe not necessarily this book, but it definitely was not bad, especially if you have multiple children. So as of right now, we are doing the poetry, the read aloud, and then 2 days of the week, just because this book is short, we are doing this test lessons in primary reading. This was also something recommended by Foundation for American Christian Education to be using in conjunction with a reading program. And what it is, I love this little book. I really do. And it's such an easy way to check your child's comprehension because, as you know, lots of children's books have illustrations that will give away what's going on in the story. Well, these are short little paragraphs, and I'll say they get longer as you go. It's not one. Page 1 here, you see the length of this paragraph here, and then they have simple yes or no questions. You're not expecting your kindergartner to give you detailed answers. It's just a simple yes or no. And I'll say some of these yes or no questions are explicit, others are implied. And I love that it's causing them to have to think. I'm just going to give you an example of one. This is the 6th one in here. Bozo was a big dog who loved to run around outside when the children were playing. One day he was on the screen porch and the children were playing in the yard. No one came to the door to let Bozo out. Bozo ran from one end of the porch to the other. He ran faster and faster. He ran so fast that he ran right into the porch screen and made a big hole in the screen and landed out in the yard with the children. So, an example of an explicit question was Bozo the name of a dog? Yes or no? Obviously, yes. But down here towards the end, did Bozo get what he wanted? So there are questions like that in all of these. So it's really causing your child to think about what was read, not just getting the facts, but really having to comprehend what was going on in the passage. And so we are at number 43 now, looks like. And very rarely does he miss one of these. Most of the time I read it once, just like I read it to you just now. He answers the yes or no questions. Excellent. So very happy with his reading comprehension, and this little book does a great job of helping to check or test that. So that finishes up what I read to him during reading time. Now, again, Foundation for American Christian Education recommends using Writing Road to Reading. And I found out that most of the homeschoolers who use the principal approach and use Foundation for American Christian Education for their curriculum use Spell to Write and Read. So that is what we started with, and we started with that a long time ago. We first introduced the single letter phonograms 2 years ago whenever he was first starting preschool. So he has had a lot of this particular program leading up to kindergarten. Starting kindergartens when we started working on the multi-letter phonograms. We had already learned the single letter phonograms in preschool. We learned how to write them in our junior kindergarten, and then we started in really going in with the program of Spell to Write and Read. And it's thorough. It's worked. It's been a challenge. I'd say if I had hindsight to do all over again, I might not would have picked Spell to Write and Read. I think it's a good program. I think if you have an older student who really could use help in reading, go for it. I think it'd be excellent for that. But as far as for a young child, I kind of wish I'd gone with Logic of English. But this is working, and I don't want to rock the boat, change any of the rules, change all the markings on him, anything like that. One thing that I got to help, and this is off Etsy, and you guys might can see these in the video footage, I don't know. But these are just little mini versions of your phonograms, and these are in cursive because my son is doing cursive first. But these have helped him when it comes time for his words, that he can sound it out and grab the letter tiles for the word, and then see it before he's writing it in his learning log. So this is the learning log. You get to this in a certain phase of the Spell to Write and Read program. So this is where we're at right now with it. And so, for instance, the first word is old. So he would not have anything in front of him. You would dictate to him that you need to your first word at the top of the page is going to be old. When you're first introducing it to him, you break it down. You show him with your fingers how many letters it is and all that. But by the time he's ready to put it in here, you just say old. And so rather than him having to struggle to remember how he's going to write these letters, he goes through here and he picks out the letters and sounds it out to check it, and it says old. And so from that point, he lays it out on here, and in his book, picks up his pencil and writes the word old. And that one didn't have any special markings for anything. Some of these do, obviously, but that one did not. So that's how that's been going for us. It's worked out fine enough. Like I said, it's been a bit of a challenge, but I do feel like he's learning a lot. Last year during junior kindergarten, we added in at November, December, some of the Abeka stuff. So I picked this up at a homeschool consignment shop, which I had no idea those existed. It is a little far away from our house, but they do offer where you can purchase online and have it shipped to your house. So I have done that a few times. This one's it was $12 when I picked it up. But this is from the Abeka kindergarten. And we did a lot of this last year, but we have reintroduced some of it again this year as he's gotten further along with things. And this is easy review for him. He enjoys it. It's fun. Whenever it comes time, it says to mark the vowels. I'm marking them the same way that the Spell to Write and Read program has them mark them. And he's liked this. I have used some of their beginner readers as well. Right now he's in this book 2 of I Do Read, which is the second part of their kindergarten series of readers. And these are fairly simple, but they go over the same concept a lot, which I appreciate. I feel like they do a better job of really reviewing things. Same thing with the book. Just this workbook, there's just certain things that they review, like what sound starts off this word, that the Spell to Write and Read program really doesn't do, because it just focuses on them knowing the sounds that the letters make and them being able to decipher out of a word what phonograms are making those sounds to compose that word. So I've used that in conjunction with his reading time. And then I picked up these readers. These are from the Spalding website, Learning to Read and Loving It book. And so these were not cheap. These were one of the most expensive things I bought for my son. I bought the full set of their leveled readers, and this is level 1, and this is book 4. This is where he's at right now. But these have been fantastic to go along with the Spell to Write and Read program, because they're introducing the phonograms in the same manner. So a lot of your reading programs only introduce, including Abeka, only introduce short vowel sounds first. The Spell to Write and Read, you learn all of the vowel sounds right at the beginning. You learn all the sounds all the letters make from the start. And then you start going into multi-letter phonograms where you put, for instance, an E and an A together. And this would say E, A. That's your 3 different sounds for that one. So that's just an example. It's not one of the first ones they teach. It's just, so in the back of the books, they have listed out for you what phonograms you're going to have and where they're, and what words they're going to come up in. And so I can tell before he ever starts to read this book if this is a book that he's capable of reading yet or not. And if he's not capable of reading it yet, I'll wait. I'll continue to just do these from the Abeka. And then once he's learned the phonograms that go in with this book, Then I introduce it. And so, and it's telling you for the individual phonograms when it's saying its first, second, or third sounds. And same thing with the multi-letters. Like this one's ow, o. And so it's showing you that in the word now, it's going to come up 6 times. And in the word yellow for the O, it's going to come up 2 times, which, like I said, that's been great. And in this particular book, what I started doing was I started any words that I thought he might get tripped up on, I started going over them on our blackboard, marking them with the markings that let him know if they're multi-letter and what sound they're making. And then that way, as we're reading through the book, if he gets stuck, he can look at the blackboard for reference and see those words and how they're supposed to be sounded out. So if you're using Spell to Write and Read, they're pricey. Maybe you can find them used somewhere. I did not, but these are worth it. These little readers are worth it. So the only other thing we do with our reading time is an original sentence that was carried over from the Foundation for American Christian Education. And it's just as simple as he comes up with a sentence to write things, something to write. It's teaching him what a sentence is, what it is not, when it is a run-on, when it's a fragment, just by me talking to him about it. And then I will write it on the board for him, and he can visually see me putting the capital, ending with the punctuation mark. He knows how that goes. And then every once in a while, I have him write it down himself, and he might draw an illustration. He's not big on drawing. If your kid is a drawer, that'd be fantastic. Moving on. So those are the subjects that are done 5 days a week. Our other subjects are in rotation. Once again, this comes from the Foundation for American Christian Education. And that's been honestly one of the most used things I've done with it has been their schedule, which I don't go by this time blocking. This time blocking is for a classroom. But Bible, math, they have a snack and recess. Sometimes we'll take a break before reading. We typically do. Reading in English, lunch, we do have lunch break in there, and then after lunch it comes on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, history, literature, music, or history, literature, art, and then on Tuesdays and Thursdays, science, geography, French. Now we ended up dropping geography. Let me talk about that one real quick first. Geography in the beginning phases with the NOAA plan was covering the planets and the continents and oceans. And we did a deep dive into and made sure to cover those well. He can name off the planets in order. He can name all the continents and all the oceans. It was part of the kindergarten recitation, but we jumped ahead into where it was being put in, and we put that in there. And we also went into, in the United States, what state we live in, what county in that state, and what city we live by. So, but in the second semester, NOAA plan starts in with covering the continents, specifically in geography, which is fantastic. However, I found that these weekly lesson plans did not give me enough to go off of to really construct it. And as a sidebar, I've had some health struggles the last 2 years, and that's really contributed to my ability to prepare for this stuff. If you were a teacher who knew a lot about history, knew a lot about these different subjects, perhaps you could take this and use it well for that. But for me, as a homeschool mom trying to teach a bunch of different subjects, plus deal with my health, plus run a business, I own a business, it just became too much to try to come up with all this. So it says on this one about Australia, present information about the people who inhabit Australia, cultures, customs, languages, etc. Display pictures or artifacts related to Australian culture. So this is nothing that is provided to you. It's saying you should find pictures of these artifacts. You should find these words, songs, or phrases. You should find all this stuff for your student. And honestly, a lot of kindergarten programs don't even touch this at this stage. So I decided to let it go. And next year, we're going to go ahead and we're going to cover American history. And I'm going to really nail in on him knowing the states and capitals. So in lieu of all of this geography, I've started introducing him to knowing the names of the states in alphabetical order. So that is the extent of what we're doing with geography right now. So Monday's first subject up is history. Okay, history. Once again, in the NOAA plan, maybe if I had a younger student, it would have worked out better. But they spent a very long time discussing God's principle of individuality in history, which once again wasn't really a history point. We were supposed to look at God's individuality in leaves, in dogs, in snowflakes, in it just... So I had previously gotten, because I didn't even realize this was part of NOAA plan until I got the lesson book, I had previously purchased The Mystery of History. And so this is what we end up going with for our history time. We're not doing any kind of extra extensions with this right now. We're just listening to the audio and reading along. He's grasping some of it. He's not grasping a lot of it, just to be honest. I don't love this book. I like it. I think that you could make it work. I don't anticipate using this much in the future, personally. Like I said, for next year, we are deviating away from world history for a year. We're going to go with an American history. And then after that, I am currently looking for something that cycles through all of the time periods of history to go, not for first grade, but for second grade. Like I said, next year's, I've already got picked out, purchased an American history curriculum. So that's how history's been going. Literature. So NOAA plan started off with nursery rhymes and fairy tales and different things. Nursery rhymes and lullabies. Excuse me, I forgot to include lullabies. That felt a little young for him. We breezed through those. We liked when we covered the Psalms. Psalms was good. But some of the fairy tales and things were a little weird. Didn't really care for it. Started to really not like it. It called for us going through Winnie the Pooh. Oh my goodness. We made it through Winnie the Pooh. If you love Winnie the Pooh, God bless you. I don't understand. I don't understand at all. I had not ever read the original Winnie the Pooh. Going through Winnie the Pooh just made me sad for my childhood, because I used to love Eeyore. I hate Eeyore now. Eeyore is the worst. Anyway, so after making it through Winnie the Pooh, we diverged. I started doing my own thing with literature. Basically, I'm just picking out something that I think would be valuable to him. They did call for covering some Peter Rabbit tales. He already loved Peter Rabbit, so that was great. We went ahead and did a lot of the Peter Rabbit stories. And we also got, if you like Peter Rabbit, look into the BBC cartoon versions. These are not your modern cartoon. They are very much based off of the original illustrations and stories of Beatrix Potter. They are great. So highly recommend those videos if you like the Beatrix Potter series. So we did that, and now we've moved on to a book from Lamplighter Ministries, Teddy's Button, which I really like, and I love that it's incorporating biblical themes into it. So we've just diverged on literature, and we're just going our own route. I liked that in literature, the NOAA plan had it set up to where you studied the author, kind of where they were from and their background. In doing that with the Beatrix Potter stuff, we got the book Saving the Countryside, which is a picture book that's a biography about Beatrix Potter and what she did in her life, not just the writing of the stories, but in buying up countryside. So I won't spoil that for you. It's a really great story if you get to look it up at your library, or you could even purchase the book if you have a family that really likes the Beatrix Potter stuff. Okay, so that covers our history and our literature. Science. So science and the first part of the year was going really well. The way that the NOAA plan lessons had it laid out, we started in a lot of physical science things. Once again, not very detailed. They had a few little experiment things written in there that you could do in the week. But for the most part, on the side, it said get library books about this topic. Library books about this topic. And libraries have changed a lot, as I'm sure most of you know. And especially in the realm of science, anything to do with where they can insert old earth concepts and evolutionary teachings and who knows what else. You have to be very careful with what you get at the library. And frankly, I found a lot of my library science books to also be kind of boring to read. But I did get a few on my own that were a hit when we covered certain things. So this one, magnets push, magnets pull, when we were talking about magnetism. This book was fun, and it gave you practical things to do to test coins to see if they would be magnetized. Take a magnet and see if it would magnetize to the car. Check cans, pulling paper clips with magnets, using water. So we did all these things. I got a basic magnet kit, and we did these little things in this book. And so this was a really good week. He really liked when we covered simple machines. I had gotten a book to go along with that right here. It was really a great find for me, because at one point they were selling this on Amazon for an outrageous amount, but this one happened to come out of a library. I want to say it was Salt Lake City, Utah Library sold it through Amazon. And it's just going over all sorts of different types of simple machines and ways that you can find them in everyday objects. And also if you want to make your own little crafts that are incorporating these different kinds of machines. So we love this book. We will probably be revisiting this book in the future, because with my health and stuff, we didn't necessarily do all the extras in this, but we definitely flipped through it, talked about it. We looked at the doorknob as a wheel and axle. We talked about the pizza cutter and how it was not only wheel and axle, but also considered a wedge. And so this was a great book for that. Another physical science, change it, solids, liquids, gases, and you. We did some of the experiments in this, and he definitely got the concept of solid, liquid, and gas from it. I really liked this book. We covered the scientific method. We looked at, it was, what is the name of that show? Mythbusters Jr. Mythbusters Jr. And it was an experiment testing the strength of spider silk versus steel. If you have the chance to look up that clip on YouTube, I recommend it. It was a great lesson in not only dissecting the parts of the scientific method as they went through testing that, but also it turned out that the spider's webbing was stronger than the steel wire. And so that was another chance to talk to my son about how wonderful God's creation is, that even in the littlest things like that, how miraculous and how wonderful it is that it has that kind of strength. So also in that week, we did this book, and this was also our read aloud book for that week, so we doubled up on that. And this was Scampers Thinks Like a Scientist. This is an adorable little book covering the scientific method by this little mouse, Scampers, is trying to figure out what's going on with this owl. and discovers that it's not really an owl. It's a fake owl placed there by the gardener to try to keep the mice out of the garden. And in the very back of the book, which is what I really liked, they went through and explained how the scientific method was being gone about. They gave a little bit of science about the different creatures. You're talking about the owls here, talking about the mice here. And then they had STEM activities, making the catapult, which was one of the things that Scampers made in the book. So really great little science book covering scientific method. And then we, in science, stayed with Noah Plan's general layout for things, but we had to supplement a lot. In this particular book, this was one of the best weeks we had. This was The Mystery of the Monarchs. I used this not only in conjunction with his read aloud for the week and his science, but also in French, which we'll get to in a minute. He was learning the French word for butterfly, and I found a craft for art just off Pinterest. We made a little monarch butterfly. So he really liked that, so I've held on to it. This book, The Mystery of the Monarchs, details the scientist and his wife, who, Fred Uquart, I might be saying that wrong. He was a Canadian who first started studying the monarchs to see what happened to them over the winter months, and discovered through years and years of research and tagging of monarchs and getting other people to tag them as well, their migratory pattern. And so this book goes through all of that with really lovely illustrations. And so it's kind of long read, but my son did not mind. He really enjoyed it. So this is another one if you're learning about insects or about animal research. The Mystery of the Monarchs was a really great book. So in science, we also had purchased in the beginning series from no, not in the beginning series, the God's Design for Beginners from Master Books, and pulled sections of those to be used along with topics that it fit with, like plants and seeds and things. My son didn't care for those very much. So for next year for science, I'm already looking into things, and I think I found what I'm going to get. I will be sharing stuff if I get around to it. If you're interested in knowing what I'm doing for next year, you can let me know in the comments if it's worth it for me to make a video to share with you guys what I'm going to do for next year. But the plan is to get this curriculum and then to get science books to go along with it, kind of like these were, just for his interest, because this boy loves science. He's watched all of the original Magic School Buses nearly, the Zaboomafoo. He's watched Wildcrats. He can tell you more about plants and animals than I probably could have in middle school and junior high, for sure. So he loves science. So finding him a science that was appropriate to his age level, that would keep him interested, was a challenge. But I think I found just the thing. And like I said, I'm going to supplement with these read aloud books because he really enjoys them and gets a lot from them. All right, so we've covered the history, geography, literature, science. Okay, that leaves French, art, and music. We're getting close to the end. So yes, I did start on French with my son in kindergarten. That was part of the recommendation from the Foundation for American Christian Education's Noah Plan. They have their own French program, and I got it. I did not care for it, even though I had taken 2 semesters of French in high school 2 years of French in high school and a semester in college. I did not find the French curriculum to be complete enough because it was mostly just coloring sheets with French words on them, with no English translation for those words. The only form of translation you had was saying, oh, look, this is a picture of a bunny hopping. So this must say, I did not like it, did not care for it. My son doesn't even like to color. So I quickly found something else before we even started kindergarten, and that was from Simple Languages. She's most known for the Simply Spanish line, but she has a Simply French. It's still in beta right now, and that's the one that I had purchased. So first week we did Genesis 1, and so this is Genesis 1:1. They have it in the French as well as in the English. It coincided with his Bible beautifully that week. It was really nice to have that. And it has this little QR code, and if you scan the QR code, it pulls it up on their site where you can listen to this being spoken in the French, and they'll go through it quickly as if someone was just saying it, and then they'll break it down if you want to say it along with. And we did that. We didn't memorize in the French, anything like that. But exposure to a Bible verse in every unit. And in a unit, we take every 2 or 3 weeks, we take for a unit, especially since we're only doing French twice a week. And then they have what they call a series. And this one was about a leaf. This was really fun. We took green construction paper and made leaves. And so then we did the actions that went along with the verbs here. So it had, I pick up a leaf, I see the leaf, I throw the leaf. So the verbs you were supposed to be learning were pick up, see, and throw. And I'm not going to say the French because I don't want to say it wrong. But like I said, if you scan the QR code, it does say it for you. And we enjoyed doing this over and over again with these leaves. He especially loved, and I'm going to try, je lance la feuille. When it came time to throw the leaf, he loved throwing the paper leaf and saying that. So once again, this French strictly just for foreign language exposure, understanding that other people do speak other languages, that there's nothing odd or weird about that, and the ability to pick up on that. Completely just for an exposure point. This is a poem. English translation is Listen to the Tree and to the Leaf by Victor Hugo. And they have the English for you so you can tell them what it says in English, and then you can listen to it quickly in the French and broken down in the French. They also have a poster that goes along with these concepts, and he learned the color green and different things from that. And then they have an ongoing conversation that they're to be learning. So very first thing is, instead of saying good morning, say bonjour, which bonjour technically translates to hello, but this is a conversational type program, not a literal translation. So this has been good. I especially like within the units, they include QR codes for links to songs to coincide with the theme for that week. He's loved the songs. One of the songs he learned all the numbers 1 through 12 in French and has retained that. So I very much like that. It's definitely Charlotte Mason approach to language. So if you are a Charlotte Mason type person, then you would enjoy that program. For next year, I'm not sure exactly how we're going to take things, because we are going to introduce Latin, and we are going to introduce Latin in the 2nd grade. Noah Plan had using Memoria Press's Latin and First Start French in 3rd grade. After having exposure to French in kindergarten, 1st and 2nd. So I'm not real sure where I'm going to go with French from this point. I'm probably not going to completely drop it, but it's just going to remain to be seen. So back to the Noah Plan and the Foundation for American Christian Education. Even with as challenging as this was, I had used the 1st and 2nd grade lesson plan books. I want to say 1st, 2nd, and 3rd maybe even. They were in a lot together, some of them were. And started looking ahead for next year for what I was going to have to get extra, like the science books and whatnot. and found that in first grade they only do French for a semester. Or not, sorry, French, science for a semester. My son wouldn't have had it. He loves science. And the history that was in here, when it did get into what I would consider to actually be history lessons, it was very selective, very choosy in American history, and it just didn't really flow well. And so by the time you factor in, I'm having to build my own science, I'm having to build my own Bible, having to build my own history, having to build my own foreign language. Reading is really taking place without ever touching this book. We are going away from using Noah Plan next year. As high hopes as I had for it. Now, principal approach education and the Noah Plan are not the same thing. Principal approach is an approach to education. The Noah Plan is just a curriculum that implements it. So to the best of my ability, I'm going to try to still go with making sure I am introducing Bible principles into each subject. But it's not going to be with Noah Plan. So, like I said, if you're interested in my plans for next year, then you can leave a comment down below. But this is how kindergarten has been going for us. It goes well. It is a lot, but it's nothing that my son can't handle. He does enjoy himself. We aren't spending all day on schoolwork. I will say our workload is heavier than what I hear other people's to be. Typically, we're spending at minimum 2, usually more like 3 hours a day on homeschool, but that is including these extra subjects. Art and music. Art and music. Art, first couple weeks we went through biblical principles that applied to art. That went well. But that only goes so long, especially when you're dealing with such a young child. We've tried to do some art things. My son does not really care for drawing very much. So things that are more like crafts that I can find on Pinterest are definitely more up his alley. We are lagging on art a little bit. But we'll get it figured out. Music, he takes piano lessons. And we have used, I found this from another YouTube mom, homeschool mom. Under the Home is a free online curriculum, and they have a whole section on art, like art history type stuff, and on music on there. And so we've used several of the selections that they gave examples for in music, and went through the questions and just played the pieces. Oftentimes during his math, since he's more independent with that now, I'll play the classical pieces of music. Ever since he was introduced to the Four Seasons by Vivaldi, he absolutely loves Vivaldi. He knows Vivaldi by name, requests the Four Seasons. So that's been good, and that's a free resource. May go with something different going forward, probably going to, but it's worked, and it's been great because Noah Plan, while they had music and art laid out in the time frame for a curriculum, they did not give any kind of lesson plans or any kind of goings on either one of those. So I hope this gave you a good insight into what we're doing. I'm sure this was way too long of a video, but this is our kindergarten. If you have any questions, please let me know, and I'm going to try to link as much as I can in the description box. Thank you for watching.